What's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 50 of the Trauma Dump podcast. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own, and how do I support others? This week, we will be discussing the topic of single motherhood with our very special guest of the week, Jessie. You can go follow Jessie over on TikTok. Her TikTok is at LionHeartTarot8. That is LionHeartTarot8. So please go follow Jessie over on TikTok and support her for being on this episode and sharing her story of being a single mother. And hey, if you'd like to share on the podcast, please message us in our Discord in the podcast participants channel along with your unique experiences, and we will match you to the right episode. And just a reminder for those that don't know, we do anonymous confessions episodes every couple months. We're going to be on our second anonymous confessions episode. So you can go to our Discord, go to the anonymous confessions channel, and you can type, it'll be completely anonymous. It won't even have your username on there, and tell us what you're going through. Share with us. And I'm going to be reading all of those this month on June 30th and talking with you guys about your mental health. So please join us for that episode on June 30th. And just a quick disclaimer before we start, I am not a licensed health professional. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often overlooked and extremely misunderstood. If you or a loved one are in need of medical professional help, we have resources in our description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. Hey guys, please remember to like this episode and subscribe if you want more amazing content from us, the Trauma Dump podcast. And if you are liking this episode, please share it with your friends. Please, please, please share it. It really helps us out a lot, helping the podcast grow, helping you grow, and helping those others become trauma informed. So today we're talking about single motherhood. Now, single motherhood has been a social taboo for ever. It has been a social issue for a very, very long time. And a lot of people wonder why being a single mother is so hard. Well, there's a lot of different factors that go into being a parent, and especially going into being a woman and being a mother. And single mothers may lack a strong, secure social system. They may have trouble with financial stability, especially if they're the one and only parent taking care of both themselves and their child or multiple children. This can lead to chronic stress and burnout. They may also feel lonely, isolated, and have limited emotional support. Other factors that contribute to emotional stress include financial stress, potential role confusion, a lack of sleep, inadequate self-care, psychological trauma, and ongoing conflict with the other parent. Here are some strategies that I have found that may help with managing feelings of overwhelm. Reach out to a trusted family member or a trusted friend whenever you need to take a break and take time for yourself. Have somebody babysit. I know that, speaking as a nanny, who is a nanny to 4 boys, I know that having a nanny is very expensive. I am not a cheap commodity, right? So that's why we should lean on people around us to help us take care of our kids, like your friends or a family member, your mother, your father. You can also journal, practice self-care, which we're going to delve into in this episode of what aspects of self-care should we start practicing. Attend therapy, which can be super beneficial, not only for you if you're a single mother, but also for your children going forward. And giving yourself time to adjust and practice your strengths, Practice catering to the things that make you an amazing mom. I think a lot of people, when they discuss single motherhood, they're often looking at what the mother is lacking. They're often pointing out too much of, oh, she didn't do this enough, she didn't do this enough. And it's take a break, take a breath if you're a single mother, and start to appreciate yourself more, right? It's only when we start to recenter ourselves that we can actually do our best. When we declutter our mind, that we can actually think clearly. So, please, if you need it and you're a single mother, ask for help, okay? Because you are worth helping. You do not have to do all of this alone. And I know you may feel like you do, but you don't. All right, let's get into this episode. Hello, welcome, Jessie.
It's so good to be here. I'm so happy to be here.
It's so good to be here too. I'm so happy that you're here, bro. I'm so excited.
Bro.
I'm so excited. So introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, okay, so I am Lionheart Tarot on TikTok. There's a million fake accounts, FYI. I never DM. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is just my name, Jessie Schreier. JessieSchreier.com is my website. And then in my TikTok and in my Instagram bios, you can connect to my email address.
Ooh, very cool. So today we're talking about single motherhood and the issues that surround being a single mother. But before we get into this episode, I just want to address your pronouns. You use she, her
Sure.
pronouns?
Yes, I do.
Very cool. And do you consent to this episode?
Yes, I do. 100%.
Okay, hell yeah. And if you ever feel uncomfortable with any topic or if we ever need to take a break to get some water, please let me know. I want to make sure that you feel safe and comfortable at all times.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So my first and foremost question would be, do you enjoy being a mom?
More than I ever can put into words. I was told to prepare for how amazing it is. I wasn't really told to prepare for how hard it could be. Like I made a really conscious effort to speak to the women in my life that are already mothers. And, they're like, it's going to be hard, blah, blah. But let me tell you what, it is a steep learning curve. You're doing it all, figuring it out as you go. And oh, by the way, like potentially dealing from a very psychological and physically traumatic birth. You know,
Mm,
normally, like, let's say you, God forbid, get in a bad car accident and you have to spend some time in the hospital and, you have to heal and you're on bed rest and whatever. It's like, you're going to get some sleep, you're going to get some meds, it's like, no, I had a traumatic pregnancy birth experience, but like so many other women who also have, it's like you just have to deal with it. I mean, I pushed for 40, or I was laboring for 48, push for 4, third-degree tear.
mm,
And then it's like, all right, well, you got a new baby now, so you're not going to sleep and it's going to be hard to walk. But as much as it's hard, it's equally that good. And I think maybe it's this good because it's this hard.
mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, without, hard work, the reward isn't as sweet with that hard work. The reward is just that much. Oh, yes.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I could talk about how much I love motherhood and how hard it is forever. So
Hmm.
please direct me because I could just like there's so much.
I get
to
that.
talk about.
I get that. Then let's delve into how you became a single mother because I know you didn't start out that way.
I did not. So I was dating a man for almost a year, and we had talked about getting married. We picked out an engagement ring. I was moved into his house. I did everything that I thought I needed to do. You know, I looked at he had multiple bank accounts. I looked at his credit score. I met his family. I met his friends. I was very involved in his life, and we had spent a lot of time together. I really felt like I knew who he was, and we had this baby on purpose. And you know, I just knew, I felt the soul of my son come to me. And I was like, I'm going to be a mother. And it might sound crazy to say this, but it's like, I felt like not really like you don't have a choice, but it's like, this is just what's going to happen. And I remember being in my ex's living room, feeling my son come to me. And I was like, okay, like now's the time that I'm going to be a mom. So we planned this baby, and I tracked my cycle. And then the next morning, I was throwing up, and I was like, it's happening. But what I didn't know, you know, was that once I felt like I had gotten to a certain level where he felt like he could control me in all these aspects, then that's when he really showed me who he was. And that's when all the abuse, every dial on every type of abuse amped up. I mean, name a factor, you know, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, psychological, sexual. I don't know if I said financial already, but like
Mm-hmm.
it was like once I was moved in and pregnant, he felt like he had me. And he put his hands on me a couple times when I was pregnant. And I believe it took me being pregnant to see that and to leave. It took having another baby inside of me to like awaken this inner mother lion. And I'm like, this is not like, it's one thing to hurt me, but it's another thing to hurt this baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so 10 weeks in, I I didn't outright, and this is the advice that I give to the women on my TikTok. If you suspect or if you know that you are in an abusive relationship, you don't make your plans known, and you do not do this in person, and you do not do this when you are alone with this man. I did not let him know what my plans were. I just told him, I'm overwhelmed, I'm pregnant, I need a little bit of time, I need a little bit of space. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, where am I going to live? How am I going to make money? What am I going to do? You know, like running through all this stuff. And I never really outright told him that I was going to leave him. I don't know if I could put a specific date on it, but it was months into my pregnancy when I felt like, okay, there's been enough space. And I told him at the very least we could peacefully co-parent. But then, you know, the abuse continued, and then it got to the point where I just had to cut ties entirely. So
Yeah. And that's extremely brave. And you are one of the few that gets out in a way that doesn't, end in death, because I know that does happen for a lot of women.
it's the number one risk to pregnant women is being unalived by their romantic partner. That's the number one thing worldwide across all cultures, you know, races, ethnicities, no matter the age, socioeconomic status. The number one risk is being unalived. And I don't think that I am anything special. I don't think I got out because I'm especially strong or I'm especially smart or any of that. Like, I feel like there was a huge protective, like angelic realm, truly. I say that like not in like the Christian way, but like
Mm-hmm.
I have guardian angels that I think just were working. And then also I have my dad.
Mm.
If I wasn't able to live with my dad, I wouldn't have been able to afford. I spent 9 months in bed. I wasn't able to work. I burned through my savings account. Like if I wouldn't have had my dad, I wouldn't, I mean, I would have had to maybe lean on a friend or I'd be living in my car. And this happens to women all the fucking time. And every time I talk about it, like the daycare that my son goes to, the group of 8 little kids that he's in, two of the women left an abuser when they were pregnant. And one of the women who's in like a higher role within the daycare also did. And it's like every time I open my mouth about it, it's fucking everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is everywhere. And it's sad. It's incredibly heartbreaking to be in that atmosphere where you're bringing life. That is like one of the ultimate joys in life is to bring life into the world. And you're bringing in life. And there's another force that is trying to steal your joy, control you, corrupt you, and harm you. And I don't understand why it exists. I don't understand what possesses people to, act that way. I know it has to do with significant trauma and significant, you know, self-revulsion to want to harm something that is, a part of you, or you see something that you're like, oh, I'm not ready to be a parent. I'm not ready for responsibility. My family's from Jamaica, and
What?
yeah, yes, I'm half Jamaican. My grandparents are from Jamaica, and my entire childhood, they're missionaries from Jamaica, and they would run a medical missions for single mothers and elderly people because the single mother rate in Jamaica is intense. Lots and lots of young, I'm talking 13 years old, young ladies being single mothers, and lots of young women having multiple baby daddies. Jamaica is a third world country. And so my grandparents, once they essentially escaped, felt it on their hearts that they had to go back twice a year to give back to their community. And my papa, he hired a bunch of doctors to come with him and provide a free health clinic for, I think, 2 months. So it was 4 months out of the year. And my brother and I were fortunate enough to go several times and help. And the last time I went, I think I was about 18 years old. So it's before my papa's health conditions got significantly worse. But I was put to the task to watch like 38 children while the mothers went and got, medical attention. And I loved it. It was like my own little daycare. We sung songs. Everybody was obsessed with braiding my hair because I have very curly hair, but it's pretty easily manipulated versus more coarse 4C, 5C. Like more coarse curly hair that a lot of, I call them family, my family would have. And so it was lovely. And it was lovely to talk to all of these single mothers who are doing the best that they can, but they're at such a huge disadvantage because number one, our society, like the society that we live in, no matter what culture you're from, sets women up as inferior to men. And number
Period.
two, it makes women out to be almost deified, like as, oh, mother, holy. And then also the opposite as wretched, a whore, something to be used, abused, and mistreated. And so these young women, you know, were all taught that they are nothing but their bodies, and so the only way that they could get love and food sometimes was to use their bodies. And so I felt desperately sad for them. And I did everything that I could that was within my power to support them by taking care of their little kids for 2 months. And it was a joy and a
Mm.
privilege. And, I hope that all of these young ladies are doing a lot better. But I know that because of my grandparents and because of my family coming there, that they were at least set up for a new perspective on what life could be than, kind of the hobble that they were raised in. Because Jamaica is very poor, very, very poor. A lot of people, when they think Jamaica, they think Rastafarian, they think, oh, the sandy beaches, they think Bob Marley. It is a poor, poor country. They don't even have a jail system. They send all their criminals to Florida. So it's like, it's not great. And I I really hope one day that, Jamaica can get better, essentially. But it's so incredibly hard when your own society like keeps women down to the point where even if they do work, they're seen as less than because they're a working mother. Why do you think
Mm-hmm.
that is that single mothers are seen as less than if they're working?
Because it doesn't benefit the patriarchy. It doesn't benefit the patriarchy if women don't have children, and it doesn't benefit the patriarchy if women have children and work, because ultimately the patriarchy is about pushing a man's agenda. And under the patriarchy, women are seen as appliances. They're seen as conveniences. They're seen as subhuman, less than human. And our role is to support whatever the man's agenda is. And that's the hard truth, you know? Once I realized that, it took me being pregnant to really start to unwind. How did I get to this place? And it was because I grew up in a culture, in a society that tells women it's your job to be as attractive as you can be, to get a man, to keep him, to care for him, to tolerate anything, any level of abuse. And if he's abusing you, it's your fault. And once I realized that I, like so many women, have been conditioned to think this, it's like, of course I ended up in an abusive relationship. But the patriarchy wants to tell me that it's my fault. And the women, we can't win.
Mm.
If we don't have kids, if we don't have kids, then how selfish of you. You have one purpose in life, to further the genetic line of the man and to mother the next generation. And then if you do decide to have kids, and you're not taking care of yourself and you're doing everything for everyone else, you will inevitably run yourself ragged and into the ground. And then you're old and discarded and useless now. Okay. Menopause, like you're going to slowly become silent and invisible. And if you do have kids, but you say, I want to have a financial safety net for myself, or I have career aspirations, then you're selfish and you're neglecting the kids. And meanwhile, it's like, well, I thought marriage was supposed to be a partnership.
Mm.
I thought raising kids was supposed to be a 50-50 thing. And it's like, no, no, not under the patriarchy. The dad clocks at 9 to 5 and that is fucking it. And the woman does everything 24/7.
Yeah, that's real. That's so real. And girl, I kind of faced some of it
Mm.
because I was a nanny to four boys for 7 years. And that was a lot. It was a lot. I
How,
was
how old?
I was an appliance. I started at I think 15, 16. Um,
Okay.
I was a paid appliance, honestly. But I love those boys
Yep.
so very much. And I know that I am in part the reason why they are such good little men now. And they're so
Hell yeah.
aware. They're so aware. And they're so aware of how they impact each other and how others impact them. And dude, I'm so proud of them. But I do recognize that I got that job and I kept that job and I did very well in that job because of how I was raised. I was raised in a very conservative Christian household. I am the oldest of three and the only girl. And by the time my mother had my youngest brother, she clocked out as a mom for me and my middle brother. She really did.
Mm.
And it really frustrated me to no end, but I never had the vocabulary or the ability to communicate how I felt until I got out of that situation and until I stopped being a nanny, of how much it frustrated me, of essentially, you know, I had a taste of what it was to be a single mom, but on the spectrum of it was my 9 to 5. I could go home and be, myself and do whatever I wanted. But as soon as I got back there, it was immense stress and immense responsibility to make sure these little boys didn't off themselves by accident somehow. Because yeah, they will
No
jump
fear,
off
no
of
subs. Yeah.
balconies. Yeah. Like literally, they had a 3-story house. They would jump off of the balcony just for fun, climb the freaking side of the house just for fun
Why
because it
not?
was made out of
For sure. Yeah.
rocks. They're like, yeah, let's climb. And one time, the youngest was his feet and his hands were in between like the arches and he's trying to climb to the top. And I said, hey, bud, I'm going to stand right here. If you fall, I'm going to catch you. Do not exceed up here. And his mom got mad at me because she's like, oh, you're limiting him. He could totally do it. I'm like, girl, girl, girl. No, it's 10 feet in the air. If he falls, he's gonna break something. And she's like, well, that's a curse on my child if you say that he's gonna fall and break something. I'm like, no. She's like, it's a self-fulfilling
No.
prophecy. I'm like, no, ma'am. No, it isn't. He's going to hurt himself. So I I was their parent. I was third parent. Girl, I did the best that I could. I did the best that I could. It got to a point where I was like, my input is not being respected. I'm gonna have to bow out. I'm gonna have to bow out.
Oh,
That's
proud of
literally
you.
what happened. It's like,
Proud of you.
I gotta go. After 7 years, the youngest one was 8, the oldest one was like 14. So I was like, have you ever
Peace
seen
out.
that meme where I think it's Homer just
Yep.
fades into the back?
Yep.
That was
Yep.
me. That was me. I was like, all right,
And
I gotta go.
and you know what's beautiful about that story? You could bow
Mm-hmm.
out.
I could.
Like you know, motherhood, it's a train, you're on this train and you cannot get off of this train. And
Mm-hmm.
if, if any woman is ever like, I want to have kids someday, I'm like, get a job at a daycare. Do it. Get a job at a daycare. If you can handle for the daycare that my son goes to, the like ratio, the legal ratio is like one woman, one teacher, one daycare. I don't know the title, but it's 1 to 4 kids.
Hmm.
If you can handle 4 kids under 1 years old that are all screaming at you and they're nonverbal, and this one shit his diaper, and this one's sick, and this one's throwing up. If you can handle that, okay.
Yeah. That's real. That's real. A lot of people don't recognize how much of a challenge motherhood is. I think also in our media, it really does glorify women, mothers
Oh,
specifically, to the point where, oh, she's just the best. She does no wrong. She's never stressed. She's doing it
mm.
all. Girl, that's not real.
I did not realize until I was pregnant how the media glamorizes pregnancy. Like I was like, "Ah, I can't wait until I'm pregnant. I'm just gonna be glowing and like in a floral dress in a field of flowers and just like my baby." It's like, dude, no. Every day of pregnancy was hell. I mean, I had a couple days that weren't total hell, but it was the hardest thing I had ever done until I gave birth. And then that was the hardest thing I had ever done. And then it was newborn phase. And then it's like the bar just keeps getting raised. And yeah, it's like motherhood is like this fucking, it's like, no. I mean, yes, but also no. And being a mother now. So I've been a yoga teacher for 14 years
Mm.
and I've taught at a million studios. Okay. But it was in the cities that were wealthier where the moms, the stay-at-home moms were the ones that were coming in for their yoga classes. And I always thought, one day when I'm a mom, like I'm going to be that mom. I'm going to be like, I'm going to go take a yoga class and then I'm going to get my nails done and then I'm going to go get drinks with my girls and whatever. And now I look at that and I'm like, I really say it's a privilege. You have that time, which means you have the money to have that time to focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ways in which I didn't realize different levels of privilege exist within motherhood is being exposed to me now. You know, like even if I had the money to get my nails done every 2 weeks, it's 2 hours every 2 weeks of your day. I don't
Mm-hmm.
freaking have that time. Like I'm just thinking about all these things right now. And I'm, you know, I mean, sidebar, I believe my son and my son's father, like everyone involved in this scenario, we had soul contracts. We knew what we were getting into. I knew that I'm in the situation that I need to be in right now to learn the things I need to learn. But sometimes it's like, so my mom passed 2020. Obviously my son's mother is not in the photo. So like my son doesn't have a grandma.
Mm.
And I'm like, I think about like grandmas that are involved in their little kid's life. And I'm like, even if it's a, tense relationship or rocky relationship, it's like you still got a grandma, you know?
Yeah.
Like like it's just, I don't know. I'm thinking about all these ways in which I never assigned privilege to motherhood.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
now I'm seeing it.
It's true. I mean, my mother, like I said, bowed out of being a mom essentially. My Mimi, my dad's mom, raised us. Raised us. She, so when I say that I'm Jamaican, mentally I associate my mother, my Mimi, with her heritage, with the Jamaican culture. I was taught how to cook at a very young age, which I really enjoy. I was taught all of the domestic ways by not the generation above me, but two generations above me. So the societal norms of that time were then placed on me. So I was very domesticated. I am a very
Whoa.
domesticated lady. I know how to cook, I know how to clean, I know how to sew, I know all of the domestic traits. I really do. And I appreciate that about myself and about my grandmother because I was raised that way, but I wasn't, expected to be a wife and a mother. I had the privilege of being like, oh, you're such a great singer. You're such a great actor. You're going to be an actress. You're going to be a singer one day. And so I got to pursue that as well. And I really appreciate
Yes.
that of my Mimi did everything in her power. So she raised four boys herself with my papa. And then her four boys, like all together, had, 12 children. And every single summer, for 2 weeks out of the summer, all 12 of us would be at her house. And that's intense. And she was a very good mother and a very good grandmother. We all
Oh,
respected her. We all admired her. And she did physical activities with us all the time. We would go biking. We live in Texas. We would go biking around White Rock Lake with her. She built stilts out of a tree she cut down one time. She was like she is the most badass woman ever. But that is the biggest privilege in my life was Mimi's house. Mimi's house was safe. Mimi's house was where I could just be a kid. At home is where I had to be an adult and had to do all the cooking and cleaning for my family because my mother really took advantage of what my Mimi taught me and decided she wouldn't do any of it ever again. She never did. And my mother had the privilege of, My mom worked for herself, which good for her. She owned her own business, but my dad owned three businesses. So we weren't really wealthy, but they had, money. And so my
Mm.
mom would hire maids. They would quit within the second week because my mother was a hoarder and is a narcissist. And she would scream at the maids of her house being dirty when she was the one that made it dirty. So
Hmm.
my mother had that privilege, of not having to parent her children. She didn't. That was Mimi and Papa. They parented us. She had maids and stuff. And then she also had her career. She got to go on vacations without us kids all the time. And once I started, gaining consciousness of this doesn't feel correct. And I really desperately wanted to not resent my mother and not resent motherhood at all because I had a very bad example of motherhood. And so I chose to be like, okay, Mimi is my mom. Mimi is my mother. Mimi is the
Yeah,
mother that raised me. And I appreciate her. She has so many flaws. Don't get me wrong. She's
for sure. We all do.
Mhm. But she is, for me, what a mother can be and what a mother should be, because she would also take her time, very religious lady, take her time to go read her Bible, take her time to go on walks by herself, take her time to go shopping by herself. And we respected her autonomy as a human being outside of being a mother or our grandmother.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Mm-hmm. All of us kids respected her, all 12 of us. Like, no one ever disrespected Mimi, ever, because she set clear boundaries from when we were very young. She needed her time alone. We were able to play on our own. If we absolutely needed her, we could always come to her. But, she is her own person. We learned autonomy from our Mimi. And it's 12:30. I need to take my medicine. I have it right here. But we learned our what it is to be a person displayed in a very healthy way from our Mimi. And I'm saying we as my cousins and my brothers. And my brothers are now adults. I've been an adult for a while, but my brothers are now adults. And they're
Mm.
recognizing it now because yes, having grandparents is a very big privilege. Having parents is a privilege, especially when you become a parent. And our papa, Mimi's husband, our grandpa, our mom's dad, and our dad all died within the same year. And so my
Mm.
brothers and I have been like reflecting on who raised us and who put so much into us becoming who we are. And we all have a consensus that like 90% of the legwork was Mimi. 90% of it.
Okay, so I want to hear your thoughts
Mm,
on this topic, but also sidebar. I was raised in a conservative Roman Catholic, middle class, very safe small town, oldest of three. Hey, girl, you and me was and my parents both did an incredible job in their own right. I will say that. Like as an adult, I see now like they're both people that have flaws. But you talked about, I don't want to resent my mother. And I just within really it was just within the last couple of years. So my mom passed 2020 and she got sick when I was 13, but it was a slow
mm,
decline. And I started to realize the ways in which I had resented my mother. And I look back on it now I have so much compassion for her. And I do give her so much grace. And what I believe and hope is true for every parent is that you do better than your parent so
Mm-hmm.
that it just gets better with every generation, right? And my mother was 3 galaxies away from her parents. I mean, her parents, that's a whole other story. But, there are a lot of things that I feel like my mom didn't do that I think if I had a daughter, I would have fucking done this. I would have talked to her about, oh, you're fooling around with boys? Oh, okay. Like, this is, like, and so the one thing that I realized when I became pregnant was like, oh my God, part of my soul incarnation in this life is to heal mother wounds on my mom's side, to heal generational trauma, to heal cycles of abuse on my son's father's side. And I am so like grateful that I realized this because had I not, I would have had continued my mom's lineage
Mm.
of women who, you know, they gave without limits to their own detriment.
Mm-hmm.
They put they put everyone's needs before themselves to their own detriment. And they didn't respect themselves enough to establish themselves as an autonomous being aside from I'm a mother or I am a wife. And I don't shame my mom for that. That's what she was taught. But I was able to like I didn't have the words for this, right? Like I was able to articulate this to myself after she died. And I was like, I realized that I had started to resent her because I had tried to communicate to her, like, what do you do for yourself? Stop giving so much. Like, how are you filling your own cup, feeding yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And and she wasn't. And I didn't know how to articulate that to myself, but I realized it after she had passed.
It's hard. It's hard to lose your parent. It's very, very hard. I can fully like sympathize, empathize with you on that. Of like, how do you express to your parent, like, you're giving, giving, giving to me, but I don't see you giving back to yourself? And, the opposite was true for me and my mother because it felt like the only time she was giving to me was to make herself look good.
Oh, for
Um,
sure, I bet. Yeah.
it was very, very frustrating because the ways that I show affection is directly correlated to my father. The way that he showed affection was gift giving, but it wasn't, expensive gifts. Sometimes it was, but they were very thoughtful and they were full of intention. It was always something that we needed or we wanted, and it was without any conditions. My dad just loved to give his time, give his energy. He was always, always available to those that needed him. His whole business was data recovery. He was a data recovery consultant for Apple, for the FBI. He was like, you see in those movies where the guy's like typing on the computer, like encrypting all the data. That was my dad. Genius, genius man. The most, dude. Oh, he's so great. Do you know who Jack Black is?
Girl, Tenacious D, like, let's go.
Majesty. My dad
Let's
looks
go.
almost exactly like Jack Black and he sounds like him. So whenever
Okay,
I
amazing.
see Jack Black, honestly, I cry a little bit because I'm like, you look like my dad. And if there was ever a
Oh,
movie to, play my dad, I would want Jack Black to play my dad. And then I would want Melissa McCarthy to play my mom. Like, I think that would be
okay.
the most intense, amazing thing ever. But I digress. My mother wasn't really a mom to us unless it made her look good. And I'll give a couple
Mm,
examples for those that might resonate. So I told you previously, she was very much a hoarder. My entire childhood, she would hoard all of our stuff. She really loved us when we were little, when we were able to be controlled, when we did what she wanted. And for
Mm,
me, from my perspective, I was like one of her shiniest trophies because I am incredibly talented. I'm a very good singer. I am a very good performer. I have been a
yes, girl.
professional since I was 3 years old because she made me a professional. Like I would get paid, but I didn't have any of the money. It always went to her.
Of course.
And so I relate to those girls on Dance Moms. Relate. But it was very frustrating because I was always trying to be better because she would tell me a lot. She was like, well, you need to look nice to represent your family well. And it wasn't really representing my family because my brothers didn't care. My dad was just happy that I was on stage and singing my little heart out. My mom wanted to look good. She had the constant, vision of who am I in the social hierarchy? How am I setting myself up? How do I appear to everyone else? And so whenever I quote embarrassed her, I would be moved schools. So in total, I went to 14 different schools growing up. Almost every semester was a new school. So if I embarrassed her by, say, doing poorly, her in her eyes, poorly on a test, or I was struggling in a class, or I didn't understand something, which I'm also dyslexic, she would move me schools. Instead of addressing the problem, instead of, helping me with anything, she would move me schools. And I was this is one of my dad's flaws. My dad was like, oh, your mom is always doing her best. She's the best mom ever. You have the best mom. She's so great, blah, 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 blah. And so whenever I had a concern about the way my mother was treating me and I brought it to my dad, this was one of my dad's big flaws of him being like, well, she's doing her best. She's doing the best that she can. And it really was a way of gaslighting. And
Hmm.
my dad filmed almost everything in my childhood. My childhood was almost like a TV show. And we did vlog, but it wasn't really posted on the internet until I turned 16 and I had my own YouTube channel and whatever. And I learned video editing. And it wasn't a way to be famous. It was just a way to learn video editing, stuff like that. And I was only allowed to post a couple of things. But, those VHS tapes, my dad had hundreds of them filled with just our childhood. And so when COVID happened, before he was hit by a car in our front yard, he started processing those VHS tapes. And we were watching them as a family, just hundreds of hours of footage. We all just sat on the couch and started watching them. And anytime my mother was being like controlling or showing any signs of manipulation, she would yell at my dad to turn off the camera. I saw it over and over and over and over and over to like her constantly either covering her face or putting her hands in the camera or being like, shut it off, shut it off. And one thing that really stuck in my mind was I was 6 years old. My brother was 4, and then my youngest brother was almost 2. We were all at the table and we all had these shape blocks and we were supposed to put them in a pattern on a sheet of paper. And I was struggling and I kept asking for help and saying, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the right shapes. And she's like, well, you're supposed to put the shapes together so they can fit on there. You're so dumb. Why don't you just do it right for the first time in your life? She yelled at. We all heard it, like while we were sitting on the couch. And she was like, oh, delete that footage. I don't want that in there. Like, so my whole life was right. Everything that I had felt, it was just almost like the most like rush of like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. This was real. This
Hmm.
was real. This was real. And I looked at like my brothers and both of them looked at me and it was almost like that validating experience of, wait, we're not crazy. This is how she has treated us our entire lives, of that we were inconveniencing her. that being a mother was an inconvenience. And now, as an adult, I'm engaged. We're getting married next year. And my fiance and I,
Congrats.
thank you. We're talking about like being parents. What is it to be, a parent? When do we want to be parents? How can we be kind enough to ourselves to then progress to be kind to other people and then eventually have the ultimate responsibility of providing for another life. And I was talking to him about how I do want to be a mom. I do want to be responsible for someone else, but I don't want to ever see children as a burden or as, you know, a puppet, because that's how I was treated. And I asked him, how can I not see them that way? He's like, well, first and foremost, you won't. But secondly, you just see them as little people. They're just little people. They're
Yeah.
children. Children are humans. Humans are people. If you start to, put them on a pedestal, then you're going to raise little kids that think they're better than everybody else. If you put them below you and say that you're better than your children or that you're in charge, you're the boss of your little children, you puppet them, you're going to raise people pleasers that don't respect their own autonomy and then don't respect the autonomy of others. But if you put them on the same level as you and you treat them with respect and recognition while also guiding them with care and making sure that they understand themselves and understand the world around them, then you're going to raise people that have autonomy and have the ability to make right decisions, not only for themselves, but for others. And so
Mm.
I'm trying my best. And I just wanted to ask you, like, because you were talking about, you didn't want to resent your mom for not taking time for herself. How do you take time for yourself out of the day?
Well, let me preface by saying my son just turned 11 months old, and this is a moment in time. I know the time will come when I'm able to take time for myself. Can you hear me? They're mowing outside. If it's too loud, just be like, girl.
I don't hear anything. You got this.
Perfect. Perfect. Right now, taking time for myself means spending 3 minutes to wash my face instead of 30 seconds. And while I'm standing at the sink washing my face, I can just turn my head to the right and he's 20 feet away from me. It looks like eating, you know, ham and mustard on the kitchen counter for 3 minutes while I'm watching the baby monitor before I go to bed. It looks like taking 5 minutes to journal in the morning before I attempt to tackle a third of my to-do list. Like right now, it doesn't look like a lot. I mean, I used to live at the yoga studio in the gym, and now teaching a 1 hour class feels like a privilege. I don't have the time or the energy, quite frankly, right now, but I know that that will shift and change. And I know that there will come a day when I look back on this time and think, how special was it? Even though it was really hard. But it's like, single motherhood, it makes you realize where your limits are very quickly and very clearly. And I also have narcolepsy. And so, which is a disability, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not sleeping. My son gets up every 2 hours at night. I'm not taking naps during the day because I'm trying to work so that I can make money. And it really, a lot has been removed from
Mm.
my life. I just don't have the time or the energy. So like it really crystallizes like what is absolutely necessary to do, to get done, and to be. And you know, everything else will come eventually.
Yeah. Is it hard to differentiate your individual identity and your identity as a mom?
Mm, that is such an amazing question. And it's like the Venn diagram. Like this is me as a mom, and there's overlap. And it's almost like I believe no matter what, there will never be like 100% total and complete separation, because
Mhm.
even if I take the time to focus solely on myself or do something for myself away from my son, it's like he's always on my mind. And just becoming a mother, what you think is important shifts and changes. I mean, everything changes. Your sense of yourself and what you prioritize and what you think is important and how you want to spend your time. Um, so to kind of say it like in a roundabout way, I don't really know yet how I'm differentiating myself as a person away from a mother because there's so much overlap. Um, I
Mm.
think about all my roles. You know, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm an artist. I'm on TikTok. I make content. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm an aunt. Like these are all my roles, right? But motherhood informs all of them, and I don't know if there will ever be total and complete separation. I don't know if that's a bad thing because being a mother informs everything I do and it enriches everything I do. But yeah, I I, I don't really know what looks like right now.
Mhm.
I really don't.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
You got a baby. That's a wee
Oh my
baby.
God. I got whoop a baby. And you know what? I want to put his face all over my TikTok, but pedophiles are real.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Ay.
I want to put his face all over Instagram and Facebook. I also, you know, I don't want to give his father the gratification of seeing how gorgeous he is,
Mm.
but he's just the most handsome man. I just love him so fucking much. God.
That's good.
So here's a question that I was going to ask you, and then I
Yes.
forgot, but now I'm remembering again. So you were talking about your Mimi and how she was essentially like Queen Wonder Woman, was this incredible model of so many things. And she was able to set boundaries and able to set time for herself. And, because of that, was well respected for sure. What do you think it was about? Was it her as a person? Was it how she was raised? Was it who modeled relation? Like what informed that?
So that's a good question. My Mimi is the oldest of four, and she grew up in a very wealthy Jamaican household. So she did have servants growing up. Um, everyone in my family is mixed race, but Mimi is Italian, um, Nigerian and Chinese. And so she's very fair skinned. And in Jamaica, it's called mulatto. So
Mm.
in that culture, the lighter skin people had more value back then. Um, it wasn't like racism wasn't like as prevalent there as it is, say, in America, but colorism was pretty prevalent. So she grew up as the oldest of four. She has two brothers and one sister, and her name is Carlene. Her name is Carlene Sanguinetti. It's Carlene Taylor now. And she was called Carlene because her father wanted a boy and he wanted to name it Carl after himself. So she was Carlene.
Oh,
And and my Mimi was always extremely independent, extremely self-sufficient, and she got away with murder, essentially. Not real murder, but she got away. She got to do whatever she wanted. And when she married my papa at 20, like before she married my papa, she went to New York and she decided she wanted to go to New York. She wanted to live in America because she went with her rich aunt to New York. And she's like, I want to live in New York. I'm going to date all these men, and whoever gives me the best chance of going to New York, I'm going to marry him. And that was my papa. So she was really like, I think she eventually loved him, but she's very like, whenever she would tell me that story, you could see in her face, she's like, girl, I married him for the green card, let's be honest. And so my
I mean,
papa, I mean, valid, go off, queen. Like, she had a
can we blame her?
dream.
Would we have done differently? For real?
No, she had a dream. She wanted to go to New York. And so my papa got into, I think he got into Cambridge, but he didn't want to go to Cambridge. And then he got in, it was an Ivy League school. It starts with a C. It's leaving my brain. It's in New
Columbia.
York. Yes, he got into Columbia. And so he's like, we're going to New York. And so they got married within 6 months of dating and they moved to New York. And, like I was saying, racism wasn't really a thing in Jamaica. Colorism was, but not racism. So they faced racism for the first time in their lives. And it was extremely difficult. My papa went to a barbershop, but he didn't know it was a whites only barbershop, and they shaved his head. And so from there, my Mimi decided that she would learn how to cut hair because she didn't want that disrespect to ever happen to her husband again. So she learned how to cut
Oh,
hair. And she had never cooked before because she had always had servants. So she had to learn how to cook. And so she bought every cooking book she could find at the local bookshop. And she experimented and she taught herself to cook. Very self-sufficient. They had their first boy within a year, and they went back to Jamaica for a while. And I had their second boy. And my Mimi was like, I don't want to be here anymore. We have to go to Florida. So they went to Florida and they had their next two boys. My papa, bless his heart, had a passion for ministry. He did not have a passion for work. And so, because she came from a wealthy family, she had a dowry, because back then dowries were a thing. And so she had a lot of money stacked away. And so they went through that constantly because it was very hard for my papa to keep a job, like multiple factors, including racism, including like work ethic, stuff like that. So she put it on him to be a vacuum salesman to the point where they had their own store and she basically ran it for him. And she
yeah,
helped
she
him
did.
run all the medical missions. I think she became the woman that she is today because she's incredibly self-sufficient. And if she saw something that needed to get done, she did it. I've never heard her complain a day in my life. And she's talked about whenever she's hurting, but that's not complaining. Complaining is
For real.
stressing about a situation that you could easily change, or there could be steps that you could take to fix, but you don't do anything about it. And you keep talking about it incessantly, expecting someone else to fix your problem for you. That's complaining. My Mimi
Oh,
has never complained a day in her life, ever, ever, ever. And she accepts responsibility for everything within her control, and she lets go of things that are not in her control. And she is the most wise woman I've ever met in my entire life, because she allows herself to be influenced by other people, but does not let that influence corrupt her self, her morals, her values. So she taught me and my brothers to be open to influence, to be open to being wrong. Being wrong is not a moral, like, end all be all. If you're wrong, You can just change, you can adjust, and you can learn. She has always been open to being wrong. And she still to this day, she's 80, is open to learning new things and growing and changing. She goes and takes her 10,000 steps every day. She's a single woman now. My papa is in the ground, he's in heaven. And she still takes time out of her day to go visit people that she knows in nursing homes. She goes and bakes them some food. She goes and sits with them. She takes people the same age as her that haven't taken care of themselves. She takes them out to go grocery shopping. She helps them with stuff. She is so completely healthy because she continues to take care of herself. And that is the key difference between my Mimi and a lot of women in her generation, is because even when she had 4 boys to raise and a husband to manage, she still made time for herself. She still took care of herself, and she still would put herself at the same level of, responsibility, love, and care as her husband. She was not better than her husband. She was not below her husband. She is at the same level as him. So she deserved the same respect. And us kids recognize that from the jump of how does, your grandfather respect your grandmother? How does your father respect your mother? How does your mother respect your father? And kids learn, they pick up on it. And so there was never an opportunity for disrespect. And if we ever, did something we weren't supposed to, she would discipline us. We were disciplined, and the punishment fit the crime. And
Mm,
the great part about my Mimi is that it was never brought up again. Once the punishment was over, once we accepted what we did wrong, it was never ever brought up again. She never held it
wow.
against us. It's almost like she forgot about it entirely. And that was great. As a kid, we didn't get away with anything. My brothers and my cousins would cause havoc, would put snakes in Papa's shoes, uh, would put duck eggs in the bed. Like, we're mischievous. Did we do things that we shouldn't have? Absolutely. But did we get punishment? Yes. The punishment usually for my brothers was mowing the yard in the hot Texas sun, was usually picking
Oof.
up sticks, was usually like going out and doing manual labor, digging. But the cool thing about our Mimi was she didn't just sit inside and watch us do it. She went out and did it with us. So it really never felt
Yes.
like a punishment. And that is what leadership is. A leader is not put above the other people, they do things with the people. That is a leader. Our Mimi was a leader, is a leader still to this day. And I think that's what motherhood should be, even if you are a single mother, even if you do have, a spouse, leading by example. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Girl, yes, I'm eating up every word. I'm like, you know, I'm right there with you and I love it. And it goes to show you can say whatever all day long, but it's what you do and how you are and how you conduct yourself. And the
Mm-hmm.
kids might not be able to put words to what they're observing and what they're seeing until they're adults, but they're picking up on it
Mm-hmm.
consciously or unconsciously. And I just love everything about that and how amazing. I mean, and revolutionary too. I mean, she's a couple generations, but it's pretty some pretty radical stuff that
Yeah.
she's doing. And you know, interesting too. So you're talking about she wanted a green card and then there was a dowry, right? And that makes me think a lot about how marriage oftentimes was supposed to be a mutually beneficial arrangement. I have this, you have this, we can benefit from one another. And then it was romanticized later on, and then Christianity came and blah blah blah. But and you said that your mom like initially didn't love Mimi didn't love Papa, but she grew to love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I for what I was taught by my Mimi is that love isn't just an emotion. It isn't just a state of existence. It's a choice. And not in the sense of, like gay rights, love is a choice. No, but the act of love is a choice. You can love someone mentally, but the way that you love that person is a choice. And the way that you
Yeah.
show that love is a choice. And I I like liken it to how I was taught Christianity of Jesus's love for the church is like how a husband should love his wife, because it wasn't, Jesus's love for the church wasn't that, oh, Jesus is ruling over the church as, a king, but working alongside the church to change the world is what I was taught. Even if I don't
Mm-hmm.
subscribe to that belief system anymore, that's what I was
Mm-hmm.
taught. And so my Mimi, her choice was to she chose, the husband that she wanted. She dated a lot of different men. There's like a funny story about how my papa was supposed to take her out on a date and she snuck out the window to go date someone else. And,
Why
you
not?
know, like,
I mean,
she and my papa just sat I think it's the sitting room with my Mimi's grandmother, Ivy G, who I'm named after, Ivy Grace. And
mm,
my papa would quote what she said. She's like, "Oh, she come soon, my love. She love you, my love, but she trying to see her options. She come back soon. She come back soon, my love. Don't worry, she come back soon." And she
mm.
did. So it's like, I don't
I
know.
mean,
She wildin'. Mimi was wildin'. She's like, "I'm not married. I owe you nothing." So, common signs of
oh,
symptoms of being a single mom with depression are excessive mom guilt about the quality of parenting, rumination over life choices leading to single motherhood, inability to complete routine household chores, feeling anger towards the co parent, crying spells once the children are asleep or behind closed doors, feeling too
hmm.
exhausted to ask for help, feeling disconnected from children, and feelings that the children might be better off with the other parent. Have you ever experienced any of these symptoms of depression linked to being a single mother?
Okay, I would say absolutely yes to all the above, except for the last two. I
Mhm.
have never once felt my son would be better off in any way, shape, or form in the care of his father or anyone that knows his father, period. But I've had that whole roller coaster of emotions,
Mhm.
everything, and is it, I don't want to say that it has been depression for me. I've had serious depressive episodes in the past.
Mhm.
It was more like a combination of I'm sleep deprived,
Yeah.
I'm going through the largest amount of physical and hormonal changes I've ever gone through in my whole entire life. My whole identity has shifted and changed. The trajectory of my life has changed.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like chicken or the egg, like which one came first. They're feeding off of one another. But I would never say that I've experienced depression. Um, I've had more anxiety. I mean, just the newborn phase in and of itself, it's like I didn't sleep. You're you have one eye open, you're watching a newborn baby and you just want to make sure like are they breathing? Are they getting enough milk? Are they hydrated? And my son was I didn't know it, but he was having a dairy reaction to my milk because I was eating dairy. And I thought he had reflux, but he was just constipated, and he was on and off constipated up until he was like 8 months old. So for me, it was more so anxiety, like, what am I doing that might be contributing to this? Is there anything that I could not do or do in addition to, researching all the different philosophies around whatever is going around with my son at any moment in time? And then you're just constantly getting thrown these curveballs. Like, for the last 2 weeks, well, this whole month of May, he's missed 9 days of daycare because he's had a 101 or higher fever. And that 101 fever, daycare says we need a doctor's note. So I'm dropping everything, going to the doctor. Why does he have this reoccurring fever? Okay, what does Western medicine say about reoccurring fevers? What does Eastern medicine say? What am I doing? Is it my environment? Is he hydrated enough? Is this something to actually be afraid of? Or is this just the body's natural response? Like, he's a new human in a new body, and he's constantly exposed to all these viruses and bacteria all the time. And so, should I freak out? Should I not? Should I not freak out? Um, and a big, a big underlying theme to all of this has been, am I going to have enough money to stay in my apartment, to feed my baby? Fuck feeding myself. I'm fine. Once I was done breastfeeding and pumping, I'm like, I could fucking fast. I'm not Jesus, but I can fucking fast for 40 days if that means that, you know what I mean? My son's gonna get fed. Um, and then on top of that, it's like, okay, well, we live in a capitalist society where you have to make money, and these are all the ways in which I can make money, and I need to gas pedal to the floor every day and full throttle effort in every fucking aspect of my life in order to ensure that I'm making enough money to support myself and my son, because his piece of shit father, for 10 months was dodging courts and changing his mailing address so that he wouldn't have to go in for a paternity test. And this is a whole nother, like, sidebar conversation if you want to have it, if you want to have that. But I, came to the conclusion after talking with, a couple lawyers, his ex-wife's best friend who's in law enforcement. She enlightened me. So for 10 months, I was fueled by the rage of justice, by every woman who is in my position, who is alive right now or who has ever lived, who has been abused by a man and left for dead. And I was fueled by this rage of justice, that we live in a time when men do this, and we live in a time when our court system says this is really low. This is low fucking priority. We care about mothers. No, you fucking don't. We care about our children. No, you fucking do not. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to hold this man accountable because, oh, by the way, he didn't just do this to me. He did this to his first child. So, yeah, like, what? There's a pattern. Of course, I didn't know about this until I left him, because why would he tell me this? He's not going to trap me if he can tell me this. But um, this friend of his ex-wife said, establishing paternity is like handing the father rights, and then you're going to have to fight to reclaim those rights. And I'm like, listen, he was abusive to me. He threatened my life and the life of his son. I have in text messages, I have video. He's abusive. And she's like, yeah, well, he was abusive to you, but a judge might look at him in his doe-eyed, poor me victim, nothing is my fault, I never have to take accountability, responsibility for any of my actions, fucking sob story. I'm a changed man. I want to be an active father. A judge could look at him and say, okay, we're going to give you a chance. And when she said that, it was like this light bulb. I was like, I don't give a fuck anymore about holding this man accountable if it means just the thought of my son being in the same room as him in a supervised social worker setting. Just that thought alone, I was like, I'm not taking that chance. Like, and I never went after him for money. I knew that eventually I could, down the line, put a lien on the property that he conveniently owns with his mother. and get a fat check for a couple $100,000 is never about money. It's about saying, fuck you, you're a coward. And then when she was like, no, you'll have to fight to keep them back. I mean, she told me that his ex-wife has spent the last 6 years and over 120 grand trying to get him to pay any amount of child support. Has he paid any? No. He's in contempt of court now. June 1st court date. Who knows if he'll show up to that? But anyways, my brain. This is my brain. This is, they say mom brains. Mom brain's a fucking thing, man. Let me tell you what. You're like, I'm gonna make this point, and then the point eludes you.
You were talking about like it's not that you don't want to hold him accountable. You don't want to give him access or quote rights to your child, because that's more for the detriment of your kid than anything else.
Oh my God. And the thought of him not even saying a word and being in the presence of my son, I will not allow that to happen. Like, this is something that I feel so strongly about. I will lay down my life for this little boy because I know the potential that his father has and the whole family that enables him and the normalized abuse that exists within that family. And I will not let my son be influenced or a part of that in any degree, any way, shape, or form.
That's good. That's really good. It's very difficult because, on the one hand, this man has abused you in every way, shape, and form, has laid hands on you when you were carrying his son, which there's no forgiveness for that. I don't care how much repenting. There's no forgiveness.
No.
The possibility that he could, lay his hands on your child is a risk that you're not willing to take. And I know that a couple people will probably think, well, what about the repercussions of your son being like missing his dad or missing out on having a dad? But that dad isn't a dad. That dad is not a father. That person is skirting every and all responsibility to be a father. A father isn't just someone, who shoots his sperm up into a lady, has a baby. That's not being a father, because then sperm donors would get parental rights.
Right.
Being a father is raising a child, being responsible for a child, being loving towards a child, and being a person that your child can look up to and wishes to emulate in some way, shape, or form. And from what you have told me, this dude doesn't have the capacity to be a dad.
He doesn't have, no. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
He doesn't have the capacity to be the leader in his own life. He doesn't have the capacity to make very small decisions in his own life. Fatherhood and motherhood, for that matter, because I know not all women are perfect either, right? But it's a right that's granted to you just because you're alive. And unfortunately, that's the reality that we live in. And I'm at a point in my life, I talk to my friends know right now that I'm in my healing / I hate men era, period. Like, this is just where I'm at. I won't be here forever. If and when the day comes when I'm ready to gift a man with my time and my energy and my presence, that will happen. But my friends are like, what do you think it will potentially look like if you meet a good man and he wants to be involved in your son's life? And I'm already like, like I've got the highest, most absolute standards now because I'm able to do my very best to be a positive influence, to be a leader in my own life and a mentor and a guide and a teacher to this little boy. And I'm going to do everything that I can to protect that. And if anything is taking away from that, it's not adding, and then it's gone. And I have so many friends that are in relationships and, friends that have kids. And unfortunately, I'm able to witness firsthand the double standards that exist within, being a mom and being a dad. And I feel like on so many levels, fathers are praised for so little, and mothers are expected to do so much, and they're not appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I have these constant moments where I feel like all these little light bulbs are coming off in my head,
Mm.
and I'm like, this is normalized, this is tolerated, this is what the definition of a dad is, and this
Mm-hmm.
is what the definition of a mom is, and they are very different.
They are. Because women are expected to raise the child, and if a man does say even an ounce of that or demonstrates an ounce of that, people praise it like he's the best man in the whole world, which it shouldn't, it should and it shouldn't be praised. Because I do think any form of parenting should be affirmed and validated, but it shouldn't be
Yeah.
praised to the extent of, oh, you're just the best dad or you're such a good dad. And I'm just going to go on a tangent real quick. I don't like Mother's
Let's go.
Day and I don't like Father's Day. I think they're stupid and I think there's no fucking reason for either of them. Here's why. I think,
Marketing, probably.
yeah, I think you should appreciate your mother. If you like your mother, you should appreciate her whenever you feel like it. You shouldn't think or feel it creates so much anxiety to be like, this is a specific day of the year where I have to go balls to the wall for my mom to show her how much I love my mom and, show society that my mom's just so great. Same thing with Father's Day. Like, oh, best dad ever. You like, it's such a marketing thing of, oh, what is a dad? What are gifts you can give a dad? An apron for cooking outside that says best dad, a baseball cap that says best dad, get him a grill, get him like stuff that dads do. But then for Mother's Day, it's like, oh, get your mom flowers, get her jewelry. And it's just, it's stupid. It's stupid, and there's no reason for it. If you love your parents, appreciate them on their birthday. You don't need a
Great.
Mother's Day. You don't need a Father's Day. And another bone that I have to pick with it is because, my entire childhood, when Mother's Day came around, I can remember as a 5-year-old having so much immense stress at school whenever we were supposed to make, the Mother's Day cards. And I was trying so hard to make it better than everybody else's because I knew if, my mom perceived another card to be better than mine, she would say that I didn't care about her enough or I didn't work hard enough. That happened. And
I am
so
so sorry.
it gives me
Like,
stress.
like you lived one specific flavor of hell. You did. And narcissists breed narcissists, and you are not a narcissist. You're self-aware. Yes, nailed it. And like, what breaks my heart is to think that a grown woman would put that on a 5-year-old girl. And this is how sick and twisted and demonic narcissists are. Their children are an extension of their ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an outlet for control. Period. Like, you aren't measuring up to whatever standard that moment that your mom wanted. Okay, you meet that standard, but the goalpost is constantly moving. Like, I bet your whole entire life, your nervous system was just on high fucking alert, cortisol just flowing.
Yeah, true. It sucked so bad. And my weight was constantly fluctuating like crazy as a little kid. Not to mention, my mother was always a very obese woman. And so she would go on these fad diets and she would make me and my siblings go on them with her of fasting or just
What?
binging. Yeah. Like, we went on so many different juice cleanses where me as a 15-year-old, like, I look back on these pictures, I was bones. It was bones. And I was told, I remember, because Snapchat was a thing. I was, when you look on Snapchat, it says a year ago today or 3 years ago today or this. I was looking through it a couple weeks ago and I was picking out my prom dress and I was very skinny. Like, you could see my collarbone, which for my body type is not good. I'm a heavier set person. I appreciate that about myself. And
Fuck yeah, girl.
all my bones. And I put on the little black bar, I was like, Mom says I can't get this dress because I'm too fat in it. And it's like, I know she said that word for word. Cause she would. And going back to Mother's Day, before, because I have no contact with my mom. I'm never going to talk to her again at this point.
Good for
No,
you.
I have forgiven her. But I will not forget it. I'm not going to allow her back into my life because that's that's not right. It's not healthy. And she's
Yeah.
never gonna, she's a narcissist. She's never gonna be accountable for her actions. She's not gonna change. She's not capable of
Nope.
change. She's stuck.
No.
And so I remember it was in 2019, I was in college and it was Mother's Day, something Mother's Day event. And so the college that I went to was my mother's alma mater. And so she was coming up for the Mother's Day thing. And we had already, finished the semester, but they were having a Mother's Day event anyway. And I remember that I was the only one of the kids that remembered it was Mother's Day. And she was mad at me for not reminding my brothers. She wasn't mad at my brothers for not remembering. She was mad at me
Of
for not
course.
reminding them. Because
Because it's
obviously
your
that's
job.
my responsibility.
Right.
It's my job. It was my job to respond and remind
I didn't
my
know it was my job,
brothers.
but it is.
Yeah. I don't know. It sucked. But the Mother's Day after was 2020, like a COVID was happening, and we were all in lockdown. And so we couldn't do anything or go anywhere. And my brother, which I haven't talked to you about this, but when my brother turned 12, my mother completely discarded him and he lived the rest of his childhood at Mimi and Papa's house. He was never allowed to come back home. She never allowed him to come back home. But she was like, oh, he can come over in the backyard to my brother. And so we had like a Mother's Day in the backyard and we all ate in the backyard and we were all supposed to go around the table and tell our favorite thing that our mom did for us. And my brother, who was forced to live at me and Papa's house, was like, my favorite thing that mom ever did for me was tell me that she never wanted me to be her son and that I was a mistake and that I was supposed to go live at Mimi and Papa's. And she got so mad. And he was like, and on that note, goodbye, everybody. And he walked back to Mimi and Papa's house. And I was like, wow, you're such a baller.
God,
Take me with you. Take me with you. Come on
good for
now.
you, kid. Yeah.
Such a baller. Such a baller. It's so great.
And
And
he was what, 12?
he was 12 when he was discarded. This was 2020,
Okay.
so he was 17. Yeah, he was 17
Okay.
when this happened.
Well, good for him for seeing the silver fucking lining. Everything happens for a reason.
It
Woo. But
does.
hey, I got to live with Mimi and Papa.
Yeah, he got to have stable parents. Really, he really got. And something that was really frustrating was that my mom was constantly jealous of Mimi, constantly, and would voice it, and would voice all the time that we would rather spend time at Mimi's and Papa's than at our own home. And I was like, yeah, because we have food there and we're fed. And we did have chores at Mimi and Papa's house. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't just a place that we could go play on our phones, or as my papa called them, gizmos. We weren't actually allowed to have electronics most of the day. We went and did activities with Mimi, rode our bikes, learned some woodworking stuff, carpentry. I got to crochet with my Mimi. I got to read. It was peaceful. I could just go sit outside and read. At my home, I was never allowed any peace. I was constantly
No.
told to get up and clean, constantly. If I was ever sitting down, like in my room or anything like that, she would always just come in randomly and say, well, you have things you need to be doing. Like, you could be doing this, you could be doing that, you could be doing this. Why are you being so lazy? Like, just existing. And so that burnout that I face, like you're saying, constant cortisol, crazy hormones, stress, I started experiencing pretty severe seizures and intense. And she didn't believe me. She thought I was faking.
Of course.
Oh yeah, yeah. I peed myself on purpose. What?
Yeah,
That's
totally,
like
mom.
this so stupid. And as an adult, 2021, when I was finally dating my fiance, right after, my dad died, and my mom refused to go to my dad's funeral. She refused. And so my fiance brought me back home, and he started doing the dishes, and he heard her screaming at me for going to the funeral. And he went into my room and he packed up a bag. He's like, okay, we're leaving. You're going to stay with me for a bit. And a
Yep.
bit turned into 2 weeks. And then she was like, it wasn't 2 weeks, it was a week and a day. And she was like, 8 days is long enough. Pack up your stuff. I need that room. So I had to pack up my entire room, move everything out, and I moved in with my fiance. And it's been great. Hell yeah, we have a house
Hey,
now.
good for you.
It's been
Yay.
great because
Well,
I
oh,
had
go
an
ahead.
example of, what a man should be, my dad. And so I picked a good one.
Yeah, you did. Good for
Yeah.
you, girl.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, your mom, as a narcissist, okay,
Mhm.
wildly insecure, which, projects as arrogance and confidence and whatever. Like, of
Mhm.
course, she's going to look at your Mimi and be threatened. Your Mimi's actually amazing. She's grounded in who she is. She's really smart and really valuable in so many ways. And it's threatening to your mom. And also, when you and your siblings aren't with your mom, she can't control you. And also, narcissists are always the victim. So it's like, of
Mhm.
course, she's going to tell you.
Yeah.
Good for you for, moving out of there. Good for you for going no contact. That's literally the only solution. I mean, the statistics on narcissists that are self-aware and that are able to self-reflect and actually go to therapy and actually embody real change is so low. The only solution is to remove yourself completely and go no contact, period. So
Yeah.
good for you. Proud of you for that.
Thank you. I'm proud of me too, because it also, that mother wound sucks. It sucks.
Uh-huh.
And to constantly have her in my life, of her constantly saying that I'm a good mom, I'm a good mom, I'm a good mom, I'm a good mom, and me never feeling it, feeling the exact opposite, being abused by her, it really distorted, my sense of self. And, you know, I felt like shit all the time. I really did. I felt like I was worthless. And also, your mom is half of you. And so it sucked
Mm.
to see my mother treat my siblings so horribly, also, because part of me knew that because she's capable of doing it, I'm capable of doing it. And it's something that I have to constantly stop myself from doing, is whenever I feel like a judgment, say, about another person, I have to hold myself accountable and stop that judgment from continuing, because she would do it all the time. She was very judgy, very critical. And so whenever I notice, you know, any sense of it, I'm like, hold up. No,
Mm.
you don't know the full story. You need to stop. And growing up, I'm gonna be honest with you, I had a very negative view of single motherhood. I, as a child, thought it was a choice because my mother would describe it as such, that being a single mom was just women thinking that they didn't need a man, that they were better than men, and that they could do it all themselves. That's what I was told. That's what I was
Okay.
taught. And so I remember, like, say, 10, 11. I think it stopped by the time I was like 13 and gained more cognizance of, wait, hold up, there are nuances in the world. But I remember a kid in my class, a little girl, and her mom was a single mom. And I remember going over to her house, and her mom was working on the computer, and she got up, she was holding her laptop, she made a sandwich with one hand, handed it to us, and then went back to work. And I was like, "What's your mom doing?" She's like, "Oh, my mom's working right now." She's like, that was like crazy in my little brain. I was like, "Okay, where's your dad?" I don't have a dad. And I, little Grace, was very judgy of that. I don't know exactly what I thought, but I thought it was wrong. I think that's what
Yeah.
I thought. I thought it was wrong. And so little Grace didn't want to be friends with that little girl anymore. And that's horrible. That's a horrible thing. And I recognize that within myself. And I'm very upset about little me. That sucks. That's horrible.
Well, I mean, it is horrible, not because of who you are, but it's a reflection of something that you were taught. And you have the self-awareness to say, hey, wait a minute, whoa, like this is what I used to think. And I absorbed this maybe from some source that I'm not aware of, but I absorbed it and I'm going to choose otherwise. But we're taught so many things. If it's not from the school we go to, the coaches, the priests, the teachers, our family, our parents, right? So mom implants this idea in your head, you're going to take it as truth. I mean, this was the summer of 20, was this the summer of 22? I was dating my son's father, and I was working this job, and the boss was a female narcissist. And of course, I got this job through my ex because he coached her daughters in hockey and needed someone, yada, yada. So I'm working this job, and there's a bus stop, and I always saw this woman and this daughter, and, just started talking to them. And she moved from Mississippi with her daughter
Mm,
to stay at a women's shelter. She moved across the country to escape a man.
mm,
And I remembered thinking, that will never be my life. What did she not see that got her to this point? all the stereotypical battered woman victim blaming jargon, you know. She's broken, she's not smart, she's wounded, she needs to pick better, she has bad judgment, all this shit. I thought all of that. And little did I know, I was already 6 months into an abusive relationship. It just hadn't gotten physical at that point.
Mm.
And I remembered, like, when I left my abuser when I was pregnant, thinking back on this woman that I knew for that summer and her daughter, and thinking, like, that could have been me. I could be right now living in another state. I could have moved across the country. You know, talk about privilege. Okay. And I would love to hear your opinion on this.
Mm.
But under, you know, our patriarchal system, it's all men first, but it's white men at the top. You know, it's white men that are oppressing all the other ethnicities, races, cultures. Okay. And then also underneath all men of color is women. But at the top of women, the most privileged of the oppressed women is white women. And I can't help but think I am privileged on so many levels just because I'm white. This woman was black and
Mhm.
her daughter. And I think right away, what neighborhood, what schools, what jobs, what resources, what opportunities are available to me that aren't available to her.
Yeah.
I mean, you're half Jamaican.
Mhm. I'm a lot of different
You,
races.
well, right. Okay, because Jamaican, Italian, Chinese, Mimi.
Hmm. I oh Gigi. Oh, I love you so much. I know there's a person out there. Look at me, Gigi. And you're
Is that a
okay.
puppy?
I have two. So let's see.
Let me
Dog
see.
cam. This is Gigi.
Oh my gosh. Hi,
And
baby.
this is Mochi.
Oh my,
Mochi's 7 months. She said hello.
oh my
And then Gigi is
God.
7 years old. Mochi, turn around. Say hello. Say hello.
Hi, baby. Gosh.
They're
I
the
love them both
best.
so much.
They're so good. They're so babies. But yeah, we have the window out there. There's a Gigi doesn't like when people get too close to like when they actually stand on our yard. And there was a guy driving by and a kid jumped out of the back of the truck and jumped into our yard. And so that makes Gigi mad.
Well,
She
yeah, it's my yard. What are you doing?
Yeah. She doesn't bark when people walk across the sidewalk, just whenever they get into our yard. But yes, I am a lot of different ethnicities, races. If you want like my chart, I can tell you. Cause I'm gonna pull it up
Girl,
on my phone because I've been DNA tested. So
me too. Did you do 23andMe?
I think so.
Where you like spit in the tube and then the
Mhm.
FBI has your data and then they tell
Yep.
you everything about your life? Mm.
Yep. 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 Yep.
I want to hear,
Yep.
oh, I want to hear
Okay.
all about yours. Let's go.
So you can't really see very well, but that's my Mimi and Papa. That's their many different chunks of things.
Okay, wow.
A lot of different
That's
chunks.
so, wow, that's so cool. But it looks like at least Papa's got a third of something and Mimi's got a
So
fourth of something main.
Mimi's biggest chunk is German is her biggest chunk. Her second biggest chunk is Irish. Third biggest chunk is Nigerian. Fourth biggest is Ivory Coast. Fifth biggest is Mali. Sixth biggest is African North. Then it keeps going Asian, Central, Chinese, Asian East, Japanese. And it just keeps going European something, European something.
Wow.
And then Papa's biggest chunk is Great Britain. The second biggest chunk is Nigerian, Benin, Togo, Middle East, German, Jewish, Ivory Coast, Mali, and it's something else. I can't read it because the thing's so small. So then my dad is, half of each of his parents, but since you're mixed race, you get different chunks of different things. So my dad's biggest chunk says European Jewish. And then the second one is Scotland. The third one is German. The fourth one is Chinese. The fifth one is Nigerian. Sixth one is Mali, Cameroon. Yeah, it just keeps going. So my dad is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My dad has 23 different things. And then out of his children, I got the most Scottish. So this is mine. So I'm like a fourth of a lot of things, but I'm mostly Scottish. This is
You're
one
like
of my
75%
brothers.
Scottish.
Yeah, this is one of my brothers, and then this is the other brother, where he has a bunch of other
Oh
stuff.
my God.
So my biggest chunk is Scottish. And then my second one is Middle East Jewish. Then the third one is Nigerian. Fourth one is Chinese, Benin, Togo, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Mali, and then all the other like individual African countries. It's like a bunch. So the only like white that I got is Scottish. That is the only white that I got. And the rest of it is all a bunch of stuff. So
and like at face value, I'm sure anyone, I mean, not anyone, maybe
white
speaking for myself.
woman.
Yeah, I'm like, you're white. But you, girl, that's fucking fascinating. And isn't DNA and genes and fucking science crazy too? Because it's like, you're going to get 75, and then he's going to get 50, and then he's going to get 35 or whatever. Like, were
It's
any of those
insane.
like, yeah, were any of those like, I had no idea this was in my genealogy. Were any of those just like mind blowing to you?
No, because my Jamaica's mantra is out of many one people, just like how America's is like one nation under God. Jamaica's is out of many one, because there were the only like native Jamaicans were like, the Native Americans. Black people are not native. They're all slaves that have been imported to the sugar cane farms and the cotton farms in Jamaica.
Just let that one sink in real quick. Just let that one sink in. What the fuck?
So all the Black people that are in Jamaica didn't, originate from Jamaica. So Jamaica actually is not a like DNA marker on those maps. It's not. What is a DNA marker is all the African countries, all the Asian countries, and all the European countries. The native language of Jamaica got essentially wiped out along with its native people. I think there's only a handful of those people left, and they're not, 100% that native culture. They've been wiped out. It's very sad. And it sucks. And they're called the Tahinos and the Arawak. Those are the main indigenous tribes in Jamaica. So it's very sad. They don't exist anymore, essentially. But I was raised, I never knew what racism was until I went to middle school. because everybody in my family is just a different shade of whatever. I
Mm.
am the lightest, the fairest of all of my cousins. Everybody else is much darker than me, but I have the curliest hair of all my female cousins.
Wow.
So that's the, the African descent that I got was in my hair, which a lot of it is pretty, relaxed now because I've dyed the shit out of it. But but I have really big coils usually. Hey, you be
But it
nice.
looks fine, it looks fine into,
Yeah.
yeah, girl, hi,
Yeah.
hi.
It is pretty fine comparison to the coarse, thick hair of my brother. My brother, I'm gonna bleep out his name. My brother
Obviously.
JJ, the jet plane. My youngest
Mm.
sibling has the curliest hair in our family, and it is like tiny, tiny coils, and he dreads it sometimes. Very, very
Yes.
curly. And he just looks like a light-skinned person. He really does.
Yeah.
He does. And then my middle brother has wavy hair and it's very fine. And, he just looks like a white man. A white man? No. And he gets so frustrated because he looks the whitest of our entire family. And it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about it, but also not. You're so beautiful, but also like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
I had dreadlocks my last year of high school, first year and a half of college, and I actually got, well, I cut them short because I was having like bad neck problems because it was down to the middle of
Mm-hmm.
my back, and they were thin, they were like pencil, and I was like, I'm gonna defy what it means. Like, I'm not gonna have nasty dreadlocks. I'm gonna have beautiful ones. I was like really good about maintaining them, and I had blonde one and a black one and beads in them, and they were gorgeous, and it was so fucking fun.
Mm-hmm.
But all the time, all the time, I got, you're a pothead, you smoke weed.
Hmm.
And I'm like, actually, I'm a metalhead. Like, I, and also like I was essayed when I was 16, and I was still processing that. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it briefly on one of my TikToks where I was like, I kept getting told my hair was pretty, and I was like, I just want to fuck up my hair. Like, I'm sick of getting attention from men. I went to a huge school. My high school, when I graduated, there was 3,800 kids, and I was like, I want to fuck up my hair. But it's funny. I was all the time I was getting, you're a pothead. It's like, no. I was a pothead later for like a year in art school. No shame. Hey, you know, if I could do it now, I would, but it just doesn't agree with my body anymore. But tequila does.
Hey, whatever you need to unwind
What
and relax.
girl? And let me tell you what, I didn't have a drink until I was like 4 months postpartum.
Hmm.
And I have so much respect, admiration, awe, confusion with parents. I understand that like addictions are a thing and whatever, but like now, especially if you look at it like, girl, we're going off topic. You ready for this? We're taking a hard
I'm
left.
ready. I'm ready for the topic.
Okay. But also you're the captain of the ship and you steer it and you're like, Jesse, stay fucking on topic.
Well, tell me what's
Um,
going on. You can't leave us hanging.
oh, well, I'm just like, I don't understand. My reality right now is like a heightened nervous system as a single
Mhm.
mom. One of the daycare ladies is like, I give Jessie shit all the time because she's mom and dad. And it's like, yeah, I am. I am mom and dad. I'm doing a lot. And even if there was a dad in the picture, the woman is still doing most of it,
Most,
even if he's a good
most.
man. Let's be real. You're the mother. And so let me tell you what, man, the weekend comes. Saturdays and Sundays, I hang out with my friends who have two kids. And I'm like, okay, it's 9 a.m. We're having tequila sodas until 3 p.m.
Oh
And then
no.
I mean, like I'm having like 2 or 3. I'm not like getting the
Okay,
fucking
I thought
blackout.
you like every hour you get another one. Because I know some people
No,
that would do that.
no. I'm having like
Okay.
2 or 3 over the course of a day with food. I'm being responsible. I'm drinking water.
Good, good. But that sounds
But
like good
it's also,
self-care.
well, it's like this is the one thing I do for myself. I do everything that I can to take care of my like mental health. I don't, I eat the best food that I can buy and the best food that I can find and afford, which is privilege too, right?
Mhm.
Well, how people eat is also privilege, but um I have tequilas on the weekends and like it's all right. You know?
I mean, I think that's a very good way to, especially community is so essential for all of us.
Mm,
And if you're a single mom, it's very hard to find a community if you haven't already built one.
boom, boom. And like I am so grateful I have more friends than I have the time or the energy for. And I have so many people that I could lean on at any point in time. But the truth is, when you have a little kid, who doesn't love being in his car seat, I'm not getting in the car and I'm not driving far.
Hmm.
And we're on his schedule. He needs to nap and
Hey, I get it. I mean, in the sense that I was there with four little dudes that weren't mine, but I was
mm,
very responsible for. I started nannying when the youngest one was in diapers, and the second youngest was trying to be potty trained. And
oof,
potty training boys is terrorizing. I got peed on so often. It was a nightmare, but it's okay because I did it. I figured it out.
girl,
But
you
yeah,
did.
I did.
You were
And
in the gauntlet.
I was. And I think another thing, because I was like second mom, like I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. They went with me all the time.
Yeah.
Like especially the two youngest ones. They went me with me. Mm, I could never lock the door because they would always be like, "What are you doing? Be with me."
Mm-hmm.
Which, is another part of motherhood. So I've experienced a couple facets, and I'm very grateful for those experiences because it does prove to me that I can do it when the time is right for me and Joey to start having our own kids. I am more than capable. And I think it also,
Yes.
I appreciate what you said earlier about like if you want to be a mom, be it like a daycare worker for a couple days with those four screaming babies because you need to understand the lows to appreciate the highs because
Mm.
screaming children, oh my god. But one thing I really hated about being a nanny was not my boys that I took care of, but the random mothers that would leave their kids in my care and not pay me.
Well,
That
that's not
happened
very fair or nice.
happened a lot. Be like, oh, you're just going over to the blank's house to go hang out, but the blank's parents are not there. I'm there. I am now and responsible for these children. And like
My
one
hourly
time
rate just
they're
went up.
girl, I tried. I tried. They said no. They said, oh, we were just assuming that, the mom was there. It's like,
Right.
she's not. She's not there. It's me.
Mm.
Hi. And
Mm-hmm.
it was frustrating. One mom did pay me occasionally, but one day, this is crazy. This is also like when you're a mom, you're responsible for your child's like physical well-being. So I went to the park with the boys and we were all on our bicycles. And so I taught them how to ride bikes. I always taught them to have a following distance. You don't want to be up close because you don't know if someone is going to break and you might not have time. Accidents happen. Let's prevent those. They're preventable. So this kid was just learning how to ride a bike, and his parents were leaving it up to me to teach him. And in my opinion, a kid should start to learn how to ride a bike at 3 and 4 years old. This kid was about 7, 8 years old. And it was very difficult because, first and foremost, he was a whiner. He just whined and whined about everything. It was really annoying. Yeah. It was really annoying because there's no reason. There's no reason. And he was just one of those kids that was overindulged by his parents. So whenever he whined, he would always get what he wanted, but not with me. So he didn't get the memo to stop whining. Anyway, so he's learning how to ride a bike. And so I couldn't ride my bike with them because this kid was on training wheels. And so I'm walking alongside this kid. All the other boys are up in front, and he's like, "You guys are leaving me behind." Like, yes, they are, because you're on training wheels and they're in real bicycles, but it's okay. We're going to get to it. And I was like, "Okay, kid, the rules of the park: do not jump off of any structure. Do not run out of my eyesight. Do not run into the street, and do not run without having a buddy with you. So you are not allowed to leave the park unless you have a buddy with you." And he's like, "Well,"
clear. Yes.
he was like, "Well, what about the older boys? Why do they get to do whatever they want?" I'm like, "Because they're older and I trust them." He's like, "Okay." And so we get to the park, and there's a pavilion area with, the tables, the metal tables that they have outside. And so the youngest boy that I raised was sitting on top of the table, and I told him to get down, and he jumped down. And I said, "Don't do that again." And he's like, "Okay." This kid that just pulls up, he gets up on the table, and I told him, "Get down." He jumps down. I said, "Do not do that again. Do not jump down. Okay? It's not safe. Don't do that again." And so I sit down on the table. The kid does it again, and he cracks open his face,
Yep. Okay.
breaks out
Yeah.
2 baby teeth, is bleeding. I don't freak out whenever boys hurt themselves because it's a part of life. I say, "Hold up." I grab his teeth. I look in his mouth. I literally take off one of my shirts because I usually would wear 2 or 3 because you never know what's going to happen. And I wrapped it up and I shoved it in his face. And I was like, "Okay, everybody, we're walking him back home." And I was like, "Don't freak out. Don't cry. You are okay. Everything's going to be okay. We're going to get this fixed."
Yes.
And we're walking back to the house. He doesn't cry, which is great because, we're remaining our composure. And then the youngest boy, who's the same age as this boy, the youngest boy that I raised, he was like, "Why did you do it if Grace told you not to do it?" And he was like, "Well, you did it." He's like, "Well, Grace told me not to do it and I didn't do it again, but you did it again. But this is what happens because your actions have consequences." And he was like, "Well, I didn't think anything bad would happen. I guess I'm going to get money from the tooth fairy now." He's like, "Yeah, I guess you are." And so we get to the house. His mom completely understanding. His dad, however, was angry at me, was blaming me for his kid getting hurt, and they never paid me. They would pay me every week. They owed me like $200 because I watched their kid for a very long time. They never paid me.
Right, because okay, so let me get this straight. Instead of they entrusted the care of their children in your hands, and there's a financial compensation component to this. And instead of hearing your side of the story, this is what I did. I clearly laid out my expectations. I told him there are, consequences if you do this. There's risks involved if you do this multiple times, and he still did it. And yet, I'm the problem.
Yep.
Like, hey, maybe like ask me my point of view. first of all, and did it ever cross your mind that maybe your son was just being a little shit because he's a little kid and whatever, and also just because I do something apparently wrong, unobjectively in your eyes, that means that you're going to withhold payment from me?
Yeah, which was interesting because I then told, the family, the mom and the dad of who I nanny for, I told them what happened, and they're like, okay, well, this kid is never allowed at our house again. And he never was.
Okay. Well, it's a win-win because then, you're not
I'm not
watching
responsible
kids
for
for
him.
free.
It's like, I'm not responsible for him. I was like, okay, great. And what was really funny was the youngest boy was like, yeah, he was annoying anyway. And he just toddled off. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, well,
All right then.
it is what it is. It is what it is. But you said your son is 11 months old.
Yeah. I love him. He's 11 months old. Yes, he'll be 12 months on June 25th.
My birthday's June 22nd.
Girl, what's
So he's a Cancer.
Cancer? He's a Cancer sun.
Wow.
Libra rising, Virgo moon. His Venus and his Mars are in Leo. And his Mercury, no, hold up, back up. His Venus and his Mercury are in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
And his Mars is in Cancer.
Cute.
I don't know if that means anything to you. Are you an astrology
It does, yes. I'm a crystal girly and astrology girly. I
girl? Oh, same,
appreciate
same.
it.
Same.
I appreciate it. That's such a good little dude. It is
Well,
such a good little dude.
and it's, you know, it's such a, like, we balance each other already in so many
Mm-hmm.
ways. I'm a 2-degree Leo sun, so I'm right on the Cancer cusp. I'm a Leo sun and Cancer rising, Sag moon. My Mars is in Aries. My Mercury is in Gemini. My Venus is in Gemini. No, my Mercury's in Cancer. Venus is in Gemini. So it's like I have Cancer placements and I have Gemini placements. He has Cancer and Libra placements. So we have this like common ground and understanding, this like watery, airy. But then
Mm-hmm.
I don't have fucking any Earth in my chart. Like nowhere to be found. No Earth. And I got all the fire to make up for it. And he has, more of the earth and more of the air, and he doesn't have as much fire, but it's just like really cool to see. He's only 11 months old, but it's like his fucking personality is already coming out. He's a little man, he's a little person.
It's precious. That's so good. I am a Cancer sun. I am a Pisces moon and a Libra rising.
Girl,
And yeah, that's what I am. And I have a Pluto, like Sagittarius. My Neptune is Aquarius. And Uranus is Aquarius. And
okay.
then Saturn is Taurus, Jupiter is Taurus, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Sun are all in Cancer.
Watery girl,
Yes.
watery girl. Girl, Pisces moon, Cancer sun, Libra rising. Let's just talk about your big three for a minute.
I'm ready.
So Pisces is at the end of the wheel, end of the zodiac wheel. And then Aries comes after that, and Aries begins the zodiac wheel. So anyone who has Pisces placements, but specifically in your big three, this tells me that you've incarnated a lot and you've learned a lot. You're like at the end of this. Yeah. And so, and here's how I think about water signs. Oh, speaking of Pisces sun, Dad, I'll call you back later. My, my dad's a Pisces Sun, Scorpio rising, Leo moon. Anyway,
Vibes.
vibes. So here's what I think about the water signs. Scorpio is the swamp that freezes over. It's fixed water. It's the depth, but it's stagnant in a really good way. Cancer is like the shallow tropical waters, and Pisces is the fucking ocean. We do not know the depths and we do not know the limits. We have not explored the reaches of the ocean. It's the deep fucking unconscious, and the blessing and the curse of people with Pisces placements is you can fucking feel everything. And you're probably way more psychic than you know. Ah!
Yeah, girl.
Girl,
I've been through it. I
girl.
have. And I really do believe that, my purpose is to break a lot of generational trauma and then also to help a lot of people break their own
Yes,
generational trauma.
me
Is
too.
trying very hard. And that's part of the reason why I have the podcast is to help other
Yes.
people. Because once I started to heal, I think I've always tried to help other people. I've always been very aware of other people. But when I started to heal myself, I was like, okay, how can this benefit other people? That was honestly my first thought. It's like, okay, how can this benefit other people? How can I help other people?
Mhm.
And this is the best that my little brain could come up with for right now.
But here, but here's the beautiful thing about it's like you don't know. You have this pull, you have this intuition, you have this thought. I should do this thing. And maybe I'll help some people. And in 10 years from now, you might not know, you will never know the ripple effects of what you're doing. You just by, in my opinion,
Mhm.
one of the biggest ways that you can help is just by spreading awareness, talking about it. Because people don't know what they don't know. And a lot of times we feel so alone. I started talking about abusive relationships, narcissism on my TikTok because I was like, I fucking, I can't be the only woman that's alive right now on this planet that has this experience. And the more and more women I talk to, the more and more I'm like, are all of our experiences the same? Did we all date the same man? And just talking about it is healing. Just becoming aware of it, just speaking it out into the world. You're touching so many people and you don't even know.
I'm trying. I my because the Discord is what I think is really, really beneficial because I talk to people on the Discord and then my DMs are open. Anybody can message me at any time. And there's someone on the Discord that, I don't know him really, but I know him in an anonymous sense and I'm there for him whenever he needs me. And he, like, I guess 6 or 7 months ago, he was texting me about like relationship problems and how can he get over a girl that he really liked and not resent her for not liking him back and all this stuff. He wanted to be better. And, I delved into it. I texted him all the time, telling him that, you are worthy of love. You deserve to be appreciated in your life. And if this person doesn't see you in that way, that's okay. There's going to be other people that will. And he just texted me yesterday, and he said, hey, I wanted to tell you that you are a very strong soul for helping so many people at a time. I now have a girlfriend and she's having some trauma issues. And I'm not going to tell you about them because that's her privacy. But what I want you to know is that because of you helping me, I'm now someone that can help her. And
Oh,
I cried so hard. I was like, dude. That's so good on so many levels. And he was like, I I honestly don't know how you can stand up proudly while helping so many people when I myself am struggling with just helping one. You are a wonderful human being, Grace. Please never give up on the podcast. And it's like, thanks.
Can I share with you a DM that I got?
Yeah.
I took a screenshot of it and I saved it. I was like, I gotta remind myself every once in a while because let me tell you what, hate comments are real and
Mm-hmm.
men can be really shitty online. But oh, I got two of my screenshotted them. This was April 23rd. Hello from somewhere in New Zealand. I just wanted to say how much your content has spoken to me in a way I never thought possible and over the internet of all places. Stay strong, you're doing amazing.
From New Zealand.
And then this one. Your video, this number in this playlist just changed my entire life. I've been hurting for 10 years and I finally left in September. It described him to the T. Thank you. I think I just healed from all that tormenting and agonizing pain. The universe sent me that through you.
Hmm.
Oh my God. The universe sent me that through you. You have no idea how much you changed my life and those around me. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, that's so amazing, Jessie.
Like, what the fuck, man?
That's so good.
It's like we make these podcasts like you, we make the videos like me, and I'm just like, I don't know why I need to talk about this shit, but I just feel like I need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like we don't need to know the end. We don't need to know the answers. We don't need to see the results all the time. It's nice every once in a while to get messages like from your friend. It's like, you're fucking helping me a lot. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna keep responding to this call to do this thing. Because,
Yeah.
you know,
It's great. It makes me so happy. And, the podcast is what I put most of my time into. And my fiance was like, well, I want you to start taking more time for yourself and doing more fun things for you that feed your soul. Because he's like, the podcast, yes, it's fun, but it is draining at times. And, you're working very hard because I'm doing all of the audio, all of the visual, all of the promotions, all of the design. I'm messaging everybody. I'm doing, I'm
you're the
going.
director, CEO, financial, advertising, marketing, video
Yes,
editing, promoting. You're all of it, girl.
I
Yeah.
am all of it. And my fiance was like, you're also doing the interviews and you're talking to these people. And, that in itself is a lot of work, just talking to people about trauma. That's really draining. And he's like, I'm going to give you 3 boundaries that you have to keep if we're going to keep doing this podcast. He's like, number 1, you can't do more than 2 interviews in a week. Number
Mm.
2, you cannot like edit multiple videos in 1 week. You got to space it out because, this interview has already been like 2 hours. He's like, you need to space it out because it takes a lot of time to edit. And he's like, and then number 3, if you are struggling, you need to take a break and you need to tell me, and then we're going to go out and we're going to get some ice cream or a treat or something like that. And we're going to take a self-care day, but you got to tell me when those are. So those were like the 3 boundaries he was like, you need to have. And they have been really beneficial. And now I have a schedule and I pre-record these episodes so that I can, manage myself, manage my own expectations, and also manage my disability because I have seizures and I never know. And also, I like that these episodes are pre-recorded because it gives, my guests a space to share what they want to share. And if they decide, suddenly, oh, I don't want to share that, I can just edit it out. Or
Yeah.
if you wanted to show me a picture of your baby, you don't want to show the world the baby, I'll just edit the face out of the baby
Love
and
it.
it's
Trust you.
still
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great example of really healthy mirroring in a supportive relationship with someone who has genuine love concern, care for you, and who wants you to do what you are doing, and who's able to articulate to you, hey, I'm seeing some burnout.
Mhm.
I'm seeing some grace burn in the wick at both ends. Like, here are some examples of some healthy boundaries that you could set to find some sort of balance and to lean into that Libra ascendant that you have. Like, that's really wonderful. And I didn't know that you had girl, we both have. I was tested for seizures.
Mm.
Well, I had seizures when I was a little girl, but it was because I was dehydrated and I had the flu and I was sick. And then I was like misdiagnosed for narcolepsy like a million times. And then finally a doctor was like, "You have fucking narcolepsy. I don't know why no one's ever thought this." And I'm like, "I don't know either. I'm not a doctor." And then like probably like 10 years ago now, I was tested for epilepsy and I did like an overnight and then a nap study where the sleep deprivation,
Mhm.
where they're like, stay awake for 24 hours and then come in and we'll test your brain waves. But I did not have epilepsy. And so I don't know what that's like. I know what it's like to have a neurological disorder where you don't feel like you're in control of your body. I mean, I'm on 3 different medications. And if I was not, I wouldn't be able to drive and I would be the witch that they burn at the stake who's hallucinating because I literally hallucinate if I don't take medications. It's like I feel like I am 1 foot through the veil. And like
Yeah.
I had a moment when I realized, okay, this is not real. When I was like, I was in my room and I was about to go to sleep in high school, and I heard horses, and I was like, "There's no horses around. I'm on the second floor," but it's so fucking disorienting.
Mhm.
Are you? I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it, like,
I am.
what happened with diagnosis? Are you on medication? Or is it managed?
So I have seizures due to CPTSD
Yeah.
and essentially starvation. Um, Parts of my brain will completely shut off. My uncle says, because both of my oldest uncles are doctors, my uncle says it is my brain essentially shutting itself off to prevent like witnessing or experiencing further trauma.
Mhm.
Um, they are pretty intense. Some of them are grand mal seizures, which is where you lose control of your bowel movements. Um, I've had them ever since I can remember because of my mom. The worst seizure I had was when I was driving an ATV and I crashed it through 2 barbed wire fences. I shattered this entire arm and split my eyelid in half, and my eyelid had to get sewn back together. I almost lost my eye because I had such, a big seizure. And then my second worst one, I fell down a flight of stairs and tore my gluteal muscles away from my pelvis. And I had to get, them reattached, but they got infected. And so I had to get a surgery to drain, the infection, the cyst. The cyst was the size of a softball. So they had to do an 8-inch long incision that was 2 inches wide and 2 inches deep and 1 inch wide. And it was left open for 3 months until it slowly closed on its own. So I couldn't walk for 3 months. And this happened in 2021, like January 2021. So I've had pretty intense physical manifestations of my trauma. And the last seizure that I had was 4 months ago. So I haven't had them in 4 months, which is pretty great. And I think a lot of it is due to managing stress and my cortisol levels and figuring stuff out. But my Gigi, the white dog, she is a seizure alert service dog. I trained her to alert when I have seizures. So she's the love of my life. Sorry, Joey. But Gigi is, I call her like my familiar. She knows me on a level that nobody else knows me.
Mm.
And she's the best. She's the best. And she
Oh,
went to college with me. She graduated from college with me. She got to walk the stage and she got a class ring. So it was vibes.
girl.
She's so good.
Also, I'm not going to pretend like you didn't just quote Nacho Libre.
The
That one did not escape me.
best. I love it.
Nice. Jack Black.
Uh,
You know, I think a lot. So I developed narcolepsy when my mom had cancer when I was 13.
Mm.
And there's, you know, I don't know what your conclusion is on neurological disorders. You know, I've been told a lot of different things by a lot of different doctors, but from what I understand is a lot of times there's like a dormant gene and stress triggers these neurological disorders. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that makes sense. I was, 13 and I was like, okay, my mom's gonna go and I'm the oldest of three and my brain literally just glitched out. And same thing for you, girl. You were in hell.
Yeah, but now I am not.
Yeah.
I'm creating a life with my fiance that is super, super great, like
Yeah.
to say the least. We were talking about it, he and I, a few days ago, of how we're just trying to be very grateful for what we have because, you know, economically, everyone's in the shitter right now. We really are. It's just not great. But, we still have debts that we have to pay off, but we're not drowning anymore. We're
Yeah.
finally starting to float a little bit. We're not openly swimming and,
Yeah.
meeting those goals and those accomplishments yet, but we're
Mm,
floating. We're
yeah,
not
girl.
drowning. And I have a little business and it's called Gracelets, where I make handmade crystal beaded jewelry. Make each and every piece like
Girl,
this
what?
one. Yeah. And I made you one.
Stop.
Ta-da! Yeah, I made this for
Oh my
you.
God, is that like Chalcedony and Amazonite or what is that?
I have so many different greenstones. I used every single greenstone that I have. So I was like a lot. Yeah. It has Amazonite, Chalcedony. I think there are some jade pieces, but I'm not 100% certain. But I did the best I could. Some quartz in there as well. I have one
Oh,
little citrine, very little. But yes, I
I
made
love it
this for
so
you.
much. Thank you so much. I
You're
can't wait to have it.
welcome.
That's so special and meaningful and perfect because I love crystals and I'm a rock hound too. And I can I shout you out on my TikTok?
Yes. Where's the roof? Where's the roof?
Gracelets. Do you have a
Yes,
separate like TikTok account or like how
I
should I? Ooh,
probably do. I
let
think
me
I
look it
do.
up.
It's like Gracelets by Grace, I think.
Okay.
But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about
But
that.
yeah, my little business, I do little pop-ups, but the weather has been so shit that all of my pop-ups have been like canceled. And
Mm,
I've been very devastated about that. But I'm keep trekking. Joey's like, don't have to be sad. You just keep making what you're gonna make. You have so much inventory. You're doing the best you can. It's gonna be okay.
here we
So
go.
I'm trying to keep my mind on the prize and just be like no bad vibes because I don't want any of my stuff to have any bad vibes.
None.
So trying. But speaking directly to our listeners,
Yeah, yeah.
people listening, what would be your message about loving yourself and pursuing a relationship with yourself and with your child throughout single motherhood?
What's my advice on loving myself
Mhm.
and then loving myself while maintaining a relationship with my son as a single mother? Did I get that right?
Mhm.
I think a big part of learning how to truly love yourself is understanding the ins and outs of what makes you you. And that means, yes, amplifying the good, seeing what's good in you. What are your good qualities? But then also, you can't love yourself if you're constantly beating yourself up for all the things that you or other people have told you are your faults. And I don't believe there's like a magical formula to loving yourself. Unfortunately, it might come through decades of trial by fire, but it might look different for every single person. But the more that you can understand, like, this is what makes me unique in my own eyes, and I don't need anything or anyone to assign any worth or any value to me. I can validate myself.
Mm.
I don't need whatever that is, a relationship or material things or a career. There's nothing external that has any power over me. And choosing really to like not become swept up in the current of continuing to, I mean, the world will gaslight you. And like once you realize that this is happening and I have a choice and I'm not going to allow myself to be, told that I am only lovable if I meet these standards or if I fit in these boxes or if I am capable or not capable or if I achieve or what the fuck else. It's like, from the outside, you can look at anyone's life based on how you assign value and based on how you validate yourself. And you can say, I think this person is valuable, or I love this person, or this person's worthy of love. And when you have the capacity to look yourself in the mirror and say, like, I love myself, not like in spite of, but because of everything that I have gone through and all the reasons why I see myself as valuable in my own eyes. That's a big question,
Mm.
girl.
It is. And it's something we kind of have to answer for the rest of our lives is how can we value ourselves and also value others and value the work that they're doing and the work that we're doing? Because I feel in my soul that gratitude is the strongest combatant to any type of trauma.
Oh,
Being grateful that we exist, being grateful that we are here, that we can overcome, and being aware of all of the little successes that we're doing throughout the day are super, super important.
yes. And, as someone who has a disability, speaking to someone else who has a disability, what up? My definition of a successful day changes every fucking day. You know what I mean? My, my capacity is different every single
Mhm.
day. And I know what I'm capable of, and I love myself regardless of however I choose to define success in that day. And yes, it's easy no matter what your circumstances is, even if they're the best of all the best, it's easy to focus on what you're lacking. But when yes, focus on gratitude with your mind. But for me, a big thing has been how can I feel gratitude in my body, you
Mhm.
know, and staying in that energy regardless. So beautiful. Well said.
Thank you. Well said to you too. This was a great episode.
Girl, I had so much fun.
100%. It's so good.
I had so much fun talking to you. I'm like, girl, we could talk about so much stuff.
Yeah, we could. Honestly, if you'd ever like to be on another episode, that would be great.
Girl,
So I
anytime.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. Where can they find you on social media? Just a reminder.
Lionheart Tarot, TikTok. Link in bio on my TikTok for my Instagram, also my email, and then Instagram is just Jessie Schreier, also emails in that bio.
Vibes, vibes.
Vibes, vibes, vibes. I love you so much.
We love you too. Everybody be safe.
Everyone be safe. Be grateful.
If you're watching us over on YouTube, here are our memes of the week, carefully curated by those amazing people over on our Discord server. Now let's get into those memes. At the end of every episode, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to trauma. So let's spin this wheel, guys. Ooh. Oh, it landed on abandoned, ignored, and victimized. Oh, that's really apt. That's really apt for this. That's really apt for this episode on single motherhood. So abandoned, ignored, victimized. So often, single motherhood is not a choice. It isn't. A lot of women become single mothers for a variety of reasons, whether it be that they were, victimized, they were forced into becoming a mother without their consent, to put it very lightly. Whether it be that they started a family and they became a widow, whether it be that they started a family and their spouse left them, whether it be that they started a family and their spouse abused them to the point where they had to leave their spouse for their own protection and the protection of their children. There's a variety of reasons for a person to become a single mother, and most of them aren't great. Most of them are horrible. And becoming a mother is very traumatic within itself, and becoming a single mother is just adding fuel onto that dumpster fire of chaos. And part of the reason why I wanted the dumpster fire to be the logo for the Trauma Dump podcast is because it's in the name, Trauma Dump. And also, I've saw so many memes where people are like, oh, my life is just a raging dumpster fire. The whole purpose of this podcast is to understand our trauma and to recover from it and to be able to talk about it openly with one another that is non-stigmatizing, okay? And that is open, honest, and mutually beneficial for one another, for our growth, for our success, for our well-being. Being a single mother is exceptionally hard. And if you are a single mother listening to this episode, I just want to commend you. Okay? I'm so in awe of you. I'm so in awe of Jessie, obviously. I'm so grateful that you are listening, that you are trying to become a better mother and to become a better person in general. And when we're feeling abandoned, instead of clinging on to that feeling and letting it be our reality, we need to start seeking out other people, seeking out support from other people, and being supportive towards other people. I know motherhood is all about being supportive to your child, but what about being supportive to yourself? There are amazing support groups all over the country, if you're listening from the US, for single mothers, and I will be putting some in the description. And if you're not in the US and you need a support group, I'm sure you can find one. And it takes a lot of courage to do so, but you've got this. Okay? I believe in you. And I'm so proud and so grateful that you're here and that you're listening. And if you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet like these ones, which are handmade bracelets made by me, Grace, or you can get a sticker like the one on the back of my computer. The links are in the description. Any support helps us out a lot. So if you feel compelled to, please like, subscribe, share the show with your friends. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show. It truly, truly helps us out so very much. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Mwah. Goodbye.